The permission paradox is an issue where you cannot get the job without having the experience, and you cannot get the experience without having the job. Your career is like a living, breathing organism, and building great careers requires nurturing them with strategic guidance. Hi, my name is Sawan Kapoor, and I'm India's leading career coach, also known as the Career Guy. Welcome to the Career Headquarters. Most comprehensive career podcast on the internet, where I will bring you groundbreaking insights on everything career related. Whether you're seeking a career abroad or wanting to switch industries, whether you are entry level or a mid-career professional or a senior leader, I have seen it all. As an award-winning CEO of one of the largest and most profitable beverage alcohol companies, my career spanned 3 continents, multiple industries, and provided me with an accelerated roadmap to the very top. So if you want to build an exceptional career and 3x your paycheck, this podcast is for you.
Welcome to today's episode of Career Headquarters, the most comprehensive career podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be focusing on how working professionals can grow their career despite the difficult times that we're in. So, Sawan, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Lovely.
Are you excited?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I'm excited as well because this is a very pertinent and relevant topic. We've been facing coronavirus for the last 2 years now, and it's become part of our reality, the pandemic. So, what are the problems that career professionals are going through at this point in time?
That's a good question. It has been a difficult market for the last 2 years. You know, we've seen both of the waves, and then Omicron came with a lesser severity, but it was there, and all of these have caused dynamics to change in the job market. And I can tell you some of the major pain points that professionals are facing is, first and foremost, they feel underappreciated. They feel under-recognized for the value and the contributions that they are making in the workplace. Another thing that I see is a lot of people are underpaid. They are struggling financially to be able to meet the monetary obligations of their life. This has been another pain point, and I think because businesses were having difficulty generating income because of the pandemic, what has happened is that all of that has resulted in cost-cutting pressure, where a lot of employees have been muscled, to accept 50% of their pay or 30% of their pay. So that's been another problem that working professionals have faced. The third one is that a lot of people, especially in wave 1 and wave 2, they went from being employed to being unemployed. A lot of companies cut positions, they cut jobs. There were massive layoffs, and this has been a problem because the amount of competition for jobs, the jobs that were there, started increasing drastically. So if you look at websites like LinkedIn, we saw that there were almost 3 to 4 times the number of applicants for a position than you would have in a regular economy. And another thing here is that the intensity of the demand started to grow. So everybody was looking for better candidates. The intensity of the quality started to grow. People were looking for better candidates, but the quantity of that demand, that was not growing. So hiring had taken a big dive, and I'll tell you, the fourth thing that I saw was that a lot of people were underemployed, right? So their skills and talents were not being used in the performance of their everyday job. They were, their head and their heart was not engaged. And that puts one in a very unenthusiastic place. It really steals the joy of work on an everyday basis. So these were some of the primary, I can tell you, patterns that I saw in the job market. In addition to this, I can tell you that a lot of people were feeling overworked because work from home was not a good thing for everyone. It cut out the commute. We were spending more time behind the screen. So it was not very out of the ordinary that people were, working for 12, 13, 14 hours a day. So a lot of people felt really juiced during this time. And I think some of that is still continuing because we're moving to a hybrid workspace, a work environment that is a mix of being in the office and being virtual. Another thing that I saw was that politics in organizations was on the rise. And this is because a virtual environment makes it more difficult to build relationships. All of the corridor conversations or all of the water cooler conversations, the casual coffee or the casual lunch opportunities that you had with your colleagues is no longer there. If a new team is indicted at such a time, please understand, you don't have any of those bonding opportunities with new colleagues, especially. So this creates a huge impact on the culture of an organization. So I can tell you, the virtual environment makes it much harder to build relationships, and it also makes it much harder to heal misunderstandings. You come onto Zoom or Skype or Google or whatever software you're using, and you're discussing the issues at hand and then going offline. There is no opportunity to build any camaraderie or to share experiences beyond just the purpose for which you attended the meeting. So these have been some of the dynamics that I have seen. Demand and supply have gone up and down, and they've gone all over the place. At the moment, I can tell you that hiring is actually up versus the same time last year. So we're sitting now in February of 2022, and I can tell you hiring has picked up hugely. Now there is no deficit in hiring, but these were some of the dynamics that came across in the pandemic. I think these were the major pain points that people were facing.
Thank you. So, despite the pandemic, how can someone grow their career? Is there a science behind it? Is it more of an art? What do you think?
I think the way I would address this is that success leaves clues. So if you look at the patterns associated with exceptional careers, there's 5 here that I would like to point out. The first one is finding the right fit. So people who build amazing careers, these people, they know how to find the right fit. They operate with the long term in mind, and they work with people that they admire and respect. See, at the end of the day, we're social animals, and to be able to have that professional fulfillment is a very big part of our jobs. Of course, we must have the capabilities to get the job done, and then we must also want to belong. So these are the 2 elements that make a great fit. The second thing here, the second pattern would be understanding how value is created and how that translates into value for you. So, it's very important to understand what creates value in a specific business, in a specific environment. May you be a product company or a service company, may you be a trading company or a manufacturing company, may you be a for-profit company or a not-for-profit company. So it's very important to understand what creates value in that specific environment, and then it's very important to understand how that translates into personal worth for you. Because you have to earn your lunch every single day. I mean, I think the moniker is true. There are no free lunches. So very critically, one must understand this second pattern in what creates value. The third pattern that I'd like to highlight in how to build great careers is to practice a very specific form of leadership known as benevolent leadership. So benevolence is where you're doing things from a place of greater intent. There is a certain largesse to the way you work, the way you operate, the way you interact with people around you. It cannot be about you. It has to be about them. See, up till the point of becoming a leader, you do everything to grow yourself. Once you start getting into those positions of leadership, it's all about growing others. So a benevolent leader is someone who enjoys the trust of the team and is very aligned with the objectives. So that's what I would say about having an outlook that is focused on helping others become successful and then being able to retain them and give them further opportunities. The fourth pattern.
What about entry-level professions? They don't start off by leading teams.
Correct. I mean, they don't start off by leading teams, but I would suggest that if they start to follow the other patterns and they grow themselves, there will be a natural journey that they will have up until that point. And leadership can be practiced at any point. So, you may not be responsible for others, but you're responsible for your work. And in a leadership capacity, making sure that you get it done on time, on budget, proactively, communicating the deliverables, the progress proactively before it's asked for, these are all elements of leadership. The fourth pattern that I would talk about here would be, um, I would say, this one is overcoming the permission paradox. Now, this is a very specific thing that a lot of career professionals face. The permission paradox is an issue where you cannot get the job without having the experience, and you cannot get the experience without having the job. Right? So it blocks a lot of career professionals because they aspire to roles of greater responsibility, greater scope. Maybe they want to go more cross-functional than just go deeper vertically. But this is a major problem that comes in the careers of most working professionals. And please understand, there are customized strategies that need to be adopted. Some of them are direct strategies and some of them are indirect strategies or implied strategies. And they need to be adopted for someone to be able to overcome this hurdle. But people who build great careers know how to create that environment of support, that cascade, of support to be able to overcome such obstacles. And the fifth pattern would be Pareto's principle, which is applying the 80-20 rule. There's 20% of your workload that is going to generate 80% of the impact. And that's the stuff that only you can do. Everything else can be delegated, it can be outsourced, it can be given to a support team, a third party vendor, whatever the case may be. So it is very important to identify what that 80-20 split of your workload is. And if you're responsible for a team, then you have to get involved with the team to help them identify what their split of the 80-20 is. So I would say these are the five patterns that are associated with building an exceptional career. Now, learning how to implement these is the science of building a great career. Because please understand, the way they would operate are different. So, the way they operate when you're an entry-level professional would be different, as you pointed out to earlier as well. The way they would come to life for a mid-career professional would be different. And the way a senior leader will have to tackle them will yet be different. So,
does it change with industries as well?
No, it wouldn't change so much with industries or functions, because this is more an element of soft skills. This is more an element of interpersonal dynamics. But the way it would operate, given the amount of experience, the amount of growth you have had at a personal level, would definitely vary.
All right, thank you. My next question to you is, are there any patterns to the problems that professionals face, depending on where they are, which stage of their career they are in? So is it different for entry-level, mid-career and senior professionals? Or is it more of a common thing?
No, there's definitely some patterns there as well. And I can tell you that, the problems that an individual faces is a direct reflection of the amount of personal development that they've had. And I can tell you, the funny thing is that a lesson in life is not going to leave us till it has taught us what we need to learn. And many a times, an individual's own intelligence can be the biggest roadblock. This intellectual arrogance that people can develop can be the biggest roadblock to their own progress and development. And the sad thing about that is that by the time they realize that they are the problem, they've already gone through that loop 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So, they've created a tremendous amount of damage to the progression of their own career. But certainly, the kind of problems that entry-level professionals will face will be different from the kind of problems that a mid-career or a senior professional would face. And, just to highlight a few. So, as an example, if you're an entry-level professional, one of the things that entry-level professionals feel is that they must take action. Now, it's very important to understand that it's not just action that will make you successful. It has to be the right action. And for that, you need to go through the learning process, the observation process of understanding what action would be the right action. So you cannot just stand at the cricket pitch and start batting. You have to see what the delivery is, what kind of a ball came to you for you to be able to, use the right shot at the right time. What is the position of the fielders on the cricket pitch. So all of this has to be judged. So don't just start taking action, take the right action. And for that, being observant is a critical skill. Another problem associated with entry level professionals is that they may engage in the incorrect learning. They don't at this point fully understand the weight of each subtopic or sub area that they are involved with. So they again have to rely on guidance. They have to rely on seniors for them to be able to guide them to what would be the right learning. Because the manner in which you consume information from a company, especially at that entry level stage, is the manner in which you will be able to produce value for that organization later on. So it's very critical to engage with the right learning. That's just a couple examples for entry level professionals. For mid career professionals, they now have tasted work life. They know how to earn a salary. And one of the problems that they have is that they tend to overpromise and build up expectations to an unhealthy level before they get into that new role. Because they're much more competitive. People are fighting for that promotion. They're fighting for that position. So, over promising and under delivering is a very classic symptom associated with the issues mid-career professionals face. Another area I see which is kind of related with this is that they come in with the answer. They again don't take the time to understand the depth of the matter, especially as they transition to new roles. And they try to come in with the answer. And I think coming in with the answer too early can have a serious impact on the kind of reputation that you're building. People may start to associate you with being hasty or wanting to, garner the spotlight in such a situation. And that can have an impact on the type of relationships that you would build. For senior professionals, I can tell you a couple examples would be, they are so set in their ways that they stick with what they know. Somewhat, that capacity to be able to reinvent yourself has somewhat deteriorated, right? So, and that is going to be very, very important, especially in positions of senior leadership, because what has got you here is not going to take you to the next step. And the kind of complexity that you may be managing as a senior leader can grow by leaps and bounds. So it's very important to be watchful of not just sticking with what has made you successful so far, but being open-minded enough at that level to hire teams that are smarter than you, and let them run the show, and you be the management truly behind coordinating the entirety of the effort, galvanizing them and taking them on that journey, and leading the systems and the administration from the front. Another thing that I see senior leaders do is that they land up neglecting horizontal relationships. So they're very good at managing up, towards their boss, and they're very good at taking care of their subordinates. But sometimes, because of the amount of workload that they have, this can all come at a cost of managing peer-to-peer relationships. And the way one department's workload is going to impact another department. One area will have an impact on another area. So if you do not take the time to build in this foundational relationship, then at a senior level, it can impact the pace and the quality of the outcomes that you will achieve. So there are definitely patterns, there are traps associated with where you are in your career. And please understand, this is not something that is taught in the formal system of education. So I see a lot of people falling into these traps. And the sad thing is that you don't need to fall into these traps. There is this knowledge is now available. So
You were talking about how personal development is closely intertwined with career development. So, what is your advice for professionals? What can they do? How can they develop more self awareness? How can they prevent these traps?
I think engaging with a career coach would be a great idea. I think in a market like India, it's harder for people to understand that. But this is an area that can produce incredibly tangible outcomes. Because I'll tell you, the fastest way to that outcome is actually working with an expert, somebody who has walked that journey before. And one of the things that we do is we always make sure that an individual's personal alignment, their purpose, their passion, the goals and the milestones that they want to achieve in their life, those are all aligned before we start working with them on the career strategies. So, that's a very deep area. And getting that's the foundation. Once you have a solid foundation, then, the number of floors you want to construct in your building is irrelevant. That can be guided by your ambition. So I would say these are some things that especially younger professionals must, keep in their purview. The sooner they start, the longer the runway in front of them.
And you even have a comprehensive challenge inside your course.
That's right. That's right.
Totally devoted to people's personal development.
That's right. And that's a very critical part of the course. In fact, the way a person conducts themselves through that challenge tells me everything I need to know about them.
So you're in a very unique position and you get to see which industries are doing better after the pandemic, actually, right in the midst of the pandemic. So there are certain industries which are still not doing very well. Some of them, they're getting better in terms of their recovery. So what can you share about that, which industries?
I actually want to break this myth. I can tell you most industries have rebound. Now, some had a slower rebound, as you mentioned. For example, if you look at an industry like the restaurant industry, they went through a particularly tough time. If you look at an industry like hospitality, they went through a particularly any industry where physical congregation was required for business to occur, they went through a tough time. But at this point, I can tell you, IT is blazing. I mean, there has never been opportunity of this level in IT, digital marketing, telecom, another industry that is on fire, especially with 5G coming. Supply chain and delivery systems. People have been locked at home. Finding new ways to help them consume products and services is the need of the hour. We're seeing so much innovation happening in that space. Healthcare, of course. I mean, the core of this problem was it was a problem related with healthcare, and it was a problem related with the healthcare infrastructure that a country has. We heard of the nightmares people had to go through when the pandemic first broke out in countries like the UK and Italy and even the United States, where the death toll was just going crazy. So healthcare as an industry has been booming. I wish it was for different reasons. It wasn't related to a pandemic, but that is, some industries do well, some industries don't. Pharmaceuticals is another industry with all of the work that humanity has had to do on the front of developing vaccines and getting vaccines tested and approved and all of that. Another area that has been doing really well is FMCG and retail. But when it comes to retail, it's retail online, because a lot of people, as you noticed, put on weight over the pandemic. So, when they were sitting at home, there was a lot of unnecessary consumption also going on, which was a driver for these industries. Even the restaurant industry had to reinvent themselves, so they found that they have the infrastructure and the kitchen equipment, but they can't serve in their premises. So they all became cloud kitchens. They started delivering, and apps like Swiggy and Zomato and all of that reached the next level. I can tell you there was a little bit of a bottleneck in the automotive sector and the ancillary sector, and this was related to the shortage of semiconductor chips, which was used in nearly every system within an automobile. But we have been able to overcome that. In fact, the Modi government has now announced that they will be investing 1 lakh crores over the period of the next 10 years for semiconductor manufacturing within India. So Atmanirbhar Bharat is really coming to life in so many sectors. This is a recent one that I recall. I was watching this on the news the other day where Nitin Gadkari was talking about all of this. I think it was at the India Business Conclave run by Hindustan Times or something, where I was watching this. Another area that is getting really hot and is showing signs of great revival is real estate and construction, and then all of the building material industries that you would have with it. So if you look at specific markets, for example, like a Kunur, like a Goa, like an Alibag, like, secondary home markets, they are showing tremendous sales velocity. The way we use spaces has changed. everybody wants to have that mix of being at home at your residence, but also having dedicated workspaces. And especially the crowd, the more affluent crowd that can afford it, they are looking for compounds like that. They are looking for a vacation home like that. Being the workcation concept has come to life, and all of that is driving real estate back to life in a fairly significant way. I think we're at the start of a pretty strong bull run for the next few years when it comes to this particular sector. Hospitality and restaurants, as I said, is picking back up. The minute the pandemic came into control, you could see the number of people who wanted to travel was just crazy. You know, it was hard to get flights. And that went for some time till the second wave hit, and then the second wave dispersed. And then Omicron and Delta, all of these other variants, they had a much lower impact. And this is how pandemics dissipate. So every variant that will come up now will have a smaller and smaller impact. And I think that's great for the economy, because I think even though it's part of the new normal, it's part of our new reality, I think we are now over the hardship of being able to manage life with this new reality being a part of our everyday. Banking and financial services, I think this is another sector that is looking phenomenal. Professional services, things like web design, like, this whole gig economy and freelancing and people wanting to get into their own business. All of this is driving a tremendous amount of growth. I think was it the World Bank or the IMF? I think one of these institutions that's predicting that we in India are going to grow at 8.5%. And I'll personally tell you, if you look at what has happened with the Sensex over the last 10, 11-year period, if you remember all the way back to the Satyam scam that took place, and that I think that was 2010, and then we had a little bit of the Nifty, I think, if I'm correct, was around the 11,000, 10,000 mark at that point. And then we had a commodities rally that started to push things up, and it came to the 13,000 mark. And then the UPA government was elected, so there was another strong rally. Then we had the Commonwealth Games scam, we had the 2G scam, and all of that was blowing up. So the markets reacted and they fell again. And then right around 2014, the Modi government came into power, and there was another incredible rally which took the Nifty all the way up to 28,000. And since then, we've had a number of reforms. Raghuram Rajan had come in the middle as governor. This is before the Modi government was elected. And then since then, we've had the demonetization drive, we've had GST implementation, we've had the ILNFS scam, all of that problem grew up. And then we had this black swan event known as the COVID pandemic. But if you look at where the Nifty stands today, you're talking about it being close to 18,000 something. The Sensex is close to 60,000. So if you had invested money at that point at the Satyam scam, that money would be almost 5 times the value today. And I can tell you, India is positioned for phenomenal growth. It is the place to be. What's going to happen in the next 2 decades is going to make what has happened in the last decade look shabby. So I am very bullish on job creation. I'm very bullish on what's about to come. It's a fantastic time to be participating in the economy at the moment. So that would be my recap and how things are shaping up. It's an incredibly exciting time.
So especially since the beginning of the pandemic, this urged people to take a second look at their careers. And it led to a lot of people moving industries and functions. They wanted different roles. So say someone was in finance and they wanted to go to sales, or someone was in a different industry like FMCG and they wanted to get into consulting. What's your advice for them?
I definitely see that. I think, this pandemic has really provided people opportunity to look deeply within and question, their meaning and their purpose. And for a lot of people, it has led to things like a mini midlife crisis where, they want more fulfillment, they want more connection, they want more purpose. So I think that psychologically is what is driving a lot of what we see, people wanting to switch industries, they're wanting to switch functions, they're feeling misaligned, they're not getting that fulfillment. But we have an episode that is dedicated to career switching. And I think that sheds a tremendous amount of light on this topic. But what I would say here is that, switching has to be done for the right reasons. And please understand, this is going to be a project. Because as I stated earlier, it has to be done for the right reasons. If you're running away from one problem and you're entering another environment that you know less about, the chances that you will land up repeating the dynamics that led to that becoming a problem in the first place are very high. The other thing that I would tell you is that, it's really a project. You have to plan your finances. You have to think through why you're shifting to that function or that industry. And then you have to begin to identify your transferable skills. You have to begin to identify your strategic and analytical skills that you can take to the new industry or job. You have to identify your technological skills, your process orientation skills. You have to identify your communication abilities, your marketing and presentation skills, because that may be required more so in the new role, especially if you're going from finance to sales. You require that ability to be able to interact. You have to identify your project management and your coordination skills. Now look at it in reverse. If you're going from sales to finance, well, actually they're needed in both areas, but so this is another key area that you need to look at. Your language and your writing skills, as I was mentioning, and your soft skills, your ability to understand how situational pressure is working in the new environment, your ability to build influence and build relationships, how you get consensus and support for your ideas, how you build a culture where you can hold people or groups or teams together. So these are all part of your transferable skills. And that's where, again, I state that trying to do this alone is trying to solve an even greater, a problem of even greater complexity without being able to solve the problem of lower complexity. So that truly is the value of coaching, in being able to create a customized plan specific for the situation and the reasons from where you're attempting a switch. Don't just let the negatives that you're not feeling fulfilled get you to take drastic action, because you're taking a problem and then you're adding an even bigger problem to it. So the issues that you will land up experiencing, the reality that you will land up creating, will be even more difficult to handle. So we're going to do an entire episode on switching and switching the right way. So I hope I've been able to answer that.
Absolutely. So with that, I'm done with all of my questions. Any last words for the career professionals watching this show?
I would suggest come attend the masterclass. Come and understand that there are severe limitations that you may be carrying in your head that you are not even aware of, because in less than 90 days you can have a 3x paycheck. But it's not going to happen by magic. There is strategic intent behind how you build your career, because as we talked about, I believe in the intro, your career is like a living, breathing organism, and it requires constant attention. You want to be clean every day, you have to have a bath every day. So, your career is this dynamic entity that you're growing. You're not the same today as you were a month ago. You've evolved, you've learned. Experience goes on happening 1 second at a time. That's how the future is unfolding. So come attend the masterclass. I believe the link is going to be in the description. And let that be the game changer. Let that be the point where 2022 becomes that breakthrough year for you. Great.
Thank you. This was extremely insightful and informative, and I'm sure the audience took back a lot of value.
I'm so happy to have done this.
See you in the next episode.
Great. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Career Headquarters, the most comprehensive career podcast dedicated to building exceptional careers. If you enjoyed this conversation, please share this with someone you think would benefit from the ideas and the insights shared on this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple, Google, Overcast, Castro, or Breaker. If you want to learn more about building an extraordinary career for yourself, I invite you to come attend my free Power Up Your Career live workshop. In this workshop, I will teach you the step-by-step process of landing your dream job in less than 90 days. The link to register is in the description below, and I will see you live at the workshop.